I did want to go ahead and talk about the whole Ludwig situation, which is huge. Now, I'm not going to be playing clips from the Ludwig situation, either Ludwig speaking about the situation or the clips from the stream, just because part of it is for time's sake, because I don't have a whole lot of time in the stream to dedicate to reacting to all these clips. But also just like, I'm sure you guys have already seen all the footage and coverage already, especially at this point, because it's been a little bit of time since there was a drama. But a lot of the short of it is, Ludwig was having a drunk Mario Kart tournament that was live streamed. One of his friends, which he claimed during the stream, was an alcoholic. I'm not quite sure if he's an alcoholic or not, but that's what he claimed. His name is Mang0. He got very drunk on the stream after Ludwig and others, but I think primarily Ludwig, encouraged him to drink more and get more and more drunk during the stream. And while Mang0 was drunk, and he was, I think, near blackout drunk if the blood alcohol content levels that were recorded with breathalyzers on the scene were correct. He was nearing blackout drunk, and he was doing some inappropriate things to folks there at the tournament, primarily women, but also he was doing inappropriate things to Ludwig as well. And so that sort of caused a massive scandal. Mang0 ended up getting cut from his Cloud9 esports team that he was on, disinvited to I think like a Smash tournament that he had previously been invited to. So basically, he's been fired from all of his bosses or whatever. All of his working opportunities are gone for the rest of the year. As of now, Ludwig also said that he's not going to be including him in any future events that he runs. Which makes sense, because you want to make sure that, you know, the people who are going to be at your events are going to be safe. Now, I do think that it's fair to be like, well, you know, maybe in the future, if he shapes up and sobers up, maybe you can include him in some things. But for someone who was a former alcoholic, you don't really want to be inviting him to any parties where people are going to be drinking and stuff, because you don't want to tempt him to relapse or anything like that. So I don't know if a lifetime ban from all events is warranted, but certainly events where there's alcohol around, especially if the use of that alcohol is not being monitored. But I'm sure you guys heard all about Ludwig's apology of the whole situation, Mang0's apology, the whole situation, him promising to not drink alcohol anymore, all that stuff, him getting banned from Twitch. You know, all the things have already been covered, but I did want to talk about the one thing that I feel like nobody's talking about for some reason, and I'm not quite sure why. I think part of it is because they're spending too much time either blaming Ludwig for what happened, or they're sort of just all wrapped up in the immediate ramifications of Mang0's actions that made these people uncomfortable. Nobody's really talking about the fact that Ludwig, he's not either done or committed to doing anything that's going to prevent this from happening again. Now, let me explain, right? Because you might be like, whoa. He has already said that he's not going to be including Mang0 in any future events. This is true. And I do have to give him credit for that. But at the same time, Mang0's not the only person in the world. Mang0's not the only alcoholic in the world, and Mang0's not the only person in the world who might do something inappropriate at an event in the future. For all we know, someone at Ludwig's next event could get drunk and do similar things, right? And so my immediate thought when I was watching the clips from the event was, well, hold on. You know, this could all be avoided if he had like Jack Doherty's bouncer, for example, or like not even necessarily Jack Doherty's bouncer, although that'd be fun for like the content side of things, but some sort of bouncer, some sort of enforcer to sort of pull somebody back if they are getting out of hand, treating people poorly, to like take that person aside. Because a lot of people were like, oh, Ludwig didn't respond appropriately to Mang0's actions. And while like to some extent, yes, like he did egg Mang0 on repeatedly. At the same time, you know, Ludwig is a participant in the event and he's also drunk. So it's not really wise to be like, hey, drunk person, why didn't you supervise this other drunk person properly? Because like one of the points of getting drunk is to not be on your best behavior, I believe. So I feel like it's a little bit unfair to get on Ludwig's case for not responding absolutely correctly to everything that Mang0 was doing. But I think it's a severe oversight to have what is basically like a drunk event, where people are basically encouraged to get together and drink a whole bunch, and not have anyone around to make sure that people are being safe, people are making others uncomfortable, people aren't drinking too much to the point of getting blood alcohol poisoning. Now, I will say, to Ludwig's credit, he did cut off Mang0 when he was getting to the point where he could have caused permanent injury to himself by drinking too much. But I feel like that's like the bare minimum. That's the bare minimum, because some people, when they get drunk, they decide to fight. When some people get drunk, they behave inappropriate to other people, like we saw with Mang0. So I am wondering, how come Ludwig hasn't made any sort of commitment to put in safeguards to prevent this from happening ever again in the case of somebody else wilding out? Like, you're going to hire a bouncer, you're going to hire security, you're going to have people sort of roaming the premises. You've got, I don't know, like a designated drivers walking around preventing people from, acting too crazy. I feel like something like that is needed. Ludwig can't do it on his own, especially if he's drunk, but also he's only one man. He's only one man. So even if he wasn't participating in the event, is he supposed to just like be omnipresent all over the place? Like, he needs at least 2 or 3 other people around these events to make sure that things are going okay. And this is not like a one-off incident, by the way. This sort of thing has been a problem in previous events. Now, generally when I see drama popping off from parties and things, usually it came from like the Cutie Cinderella's events. Like, we all remember Cutie Camp or whatever, where there was like a whole thing with like minks and stuff drinking too much. Kind of crazy how these Twitch streamers keep on inviting alcoholics to go drink with them on stream. Kind of wild, kind of crazy. But yeah, I think that not inviting an alcoholic to go to a drinking event is sort of like, the obvious thing to do. But and maybe Ludwig doesn't have to tell us, right? Because Ludwig can run his events however he wants. I think that it would be good for him optically to announce that he is putting in some sort of safeguards to prevent folks from acting out at his events in the future. If that's something that he's going to do, it could be a weird thing to sort of hide and not admit publicly that this is something that you're doing. But yeah, I think in the future, like, Ludwig has to get some sort of security or something for these events, just so that people behave and people can be put in check properly by people who are actually sober, in the case that things start getting out of hand. And I threw Jack Doherty's security guy or bouncer, whatever, out there, but like, that'd be a fun thing for content too, because I've heard some slight discourse around this proposal being like, oh, well, it wouldn't be cool for the content to just have like cops walking around or whatever. But it's like, I don't know, you could have the Cameron dude be the content cop walking around. You could have Jack Doherty's bouncer. Like, there are cool ways you could incorporate stuff like this. You could have like one of those celebrity streamers or whatever who was like boxed before, like creator clashes. Like, you'd have like Myth or whatever with boxing gloves, like roaming the premises, keeping everyone in check. I don't know, I'm just spitballing here, but these are different things that Ludwig could do. I think it takes a little bit more than being like, oh, I'm not inviting Mang0 anymore. To sort of satisfy me, at least. Maybe some other folks will be satisfied. I don't know. There are a lot of other people who are hating on Ludwig pretty severely for what I think is, at the end of the day, more or less a lapse in judgment. It's certainly unwise. Like, Ludwig should not have been cheering on, encouraging people to drink too much. But at the same time, he was drunk himself. So I have to give him at least a little bit of leeway for that. You're of course responsible for what you do, but it's like, I don't know. When you're inebriated, you do things you ordinarily wouldn't do. So I feel like that's something to take into account there. But that's just my opinion. I just found it really weird that nobody was talking about how, Ludwig didn't really make any solid commitment to prevent this from happening again if it's not from Mang0. Because I feel like it's like a pretty big oversight. Pretty important thing if you're organizing the event to sort of like cover things from that angle. You know what I mean?